Hey guys, welcome back to RAD Parts at the shop, and today we're going to talk about alternators, specifically the RAD-160. This is an alternator that we developed in 2016 at the end of it, and we're going to go over why we developed it and the pros and the cons, which there isn't really any cons, but let's talk about alternators and why they came to be here at RAD Industries, because we're not an alternator company. But what we do is we go to the racetrack. I take my Supra to the racetrack with a 2JZ motor in it, and I was having alternator issues. At first, I wasn't sure if it was like maybe the car's wiring or the battery or the grounds, like basic things, because like I was told to look into that stuff. Turns out it was not any of those, it was always the alternator. So I had a said alternator from a different brand that we're not going to talk about, that had a over 200 amp rating. In reality, it was a 145 amp alternator that was sold as a over 200 amp. We'll leave it at that. I don't need to talk crap about that company or that part, but I owned 3 of them, and I would either blow up 2 or 3 every FD round. And at this point, I was in Pro 2, and those alternators would go out literally in practice. I would lose one in practice, and if you guys follow Formula Drift, you don't get much practice in Pro 2. And then I would rush and switch it, and it wasn't like a cool bracket setup that I could just like pull it off and put a new one on. It was a little more difficult at that point in like my setup. It was really frustrating, and I would barely make it on the track, and then twice it like ended the weekend for me. And there's only 4 rounds in Pro 2, and 2 of them failed out. So I was determined to figure out like why it's happening and what did I do wrong on my setup and whatever. Let's go back a little bit. I was sending them back to the manufacturer every time they failed, and then we were like having them in rotation. I was barely having 3 all at the same time in the same place. It was kind of like one's always in the mail, either on the way out or on the way in. So back to wherever I'm at, sometimes getting delivered to the racetrack. So I'm paying all the shipping, and then I'm asking, why did it break? Oh yeah, something went wrong. Or like they'll just have like an excuse, and there was never like an exact answer, and it didn't quite make sense as a large company, and you get the runaround. So anyways, I send them in to this company called Race Proven. Race Proven is kind of the collab that helps us build this. Race Proven Inc. They don't necessarily sell these to the public whatsoever, but they can build custom alternators. So I had them start building these self-exciting 160 amp alternators. They're called a RAD-160. They're technically larger than a 160 amp, but at 320 degrees Fahrenheit, they are going to produce 160 amps consistently. I hope you don't get your alternator to 320 degrees Fahrenheit, but these can do that and run right there and be fine. So anyways, Race Proven made me one, and that first one is still on my pro race car. I'm gonna leave it on there until it fails. It's been 4 years, it hasn't failed yet. Then they made me a second one, a spare, and then people were like, where'd you get the alternator? How is it never messing up? Because there was this point when people back in Formula Drift were doing like stock JZ alternators. There's a lot of JZs in Formula Drift. Stock alternators, and then running all their fans and pumps, and they were cooking those like kind of less than I was cooking this self-exciting 200 something amp alternator I had, but they were failing, and they were noticing in 2017 that mine never skipped a beat. And then so I had people start asking, and then I started asking Race Proven, let's make more of these and sell them. So then now, years later, we've made hundreds of them and sold them, and we have had 0 fails so far. We're excited about that. We've kind of developed a little bit further with them. We also make a pulley form, but let's talk about this little screen. That is so rubber pieces from drifting, there's a lot of rubber flying around, and it gets picked up and it tries to get thrown inside the alternator. If you have like the later generation from RAD Industries, which would be like the last year, it'll have this screen on there. With that being said though, the first one that was built that's on my pro race car does not have this screen, and it's still working. But anyways, we're trying to make this like an indestructible setup for your JZ. It also works in unison with our RAD Industries water inlet, and here's the pulley that we sell with it. This is an oversized pulley to work with ATI super damper that's a little bit underdriven, so that you can go to 8,600 RPMs with no issue. You're never gonna overspin. You can go higher than that, but we had it like, we did the equation to safely like sustain 8,600 RPMs. You won't overspin the alternator, and it's still gonna spin fast enough at idle, which, you know, 800 RPM to produce energy. And when I say it's self-exciting, that means there's no plug, there's no exciter plug. All you have is your main power wire. So it's really easy to wire up, and it's gonna, you know, plug and play to any vehicle. Because let's say you have this in, you know, an S chassis, you have a 240, but you have a lot of fans and pumps and you need more energy, or maybe you're running electric power steering. All you need to do is hook up your main power, and this guy will start up as soon as the motor cranks over and starts spinning. You'll have your alternator working, and you'll have probably like 14.9 volts. It's a really strong alternator. When everything is going on my pro race car after I just did a run and everything's on, it's still gonna be at 14 amps. So it's like really good current, everything's solid. These pulleys are sold separately. If you're wondering about the pulley, it's a 2.75 inch. It says it right here on the pulley. You can buy the alternator as is by itself, or in the drop-down menu on our website, you can add the pulley. We just recently started putting the belt on the website, so you can get the belt as well if you want. The thing is, you might run this on your stock Supra, and it will fit on your stock Supra. It'll bolt to the OEM water pump, and it won't be utilizing this little tension bracket that we have built onto our water inlet. It would work fine. You wouldn't need this belt then, because you're gonna run your stock accessory belt with a tensioner right here, and it will work fine. So I'll show you real quick here. Let me grab the right tool to loosen this up. This water inlet that we have has a little bit of movement here for the belt. This is a larger housing alternator, so it won't fully articulate all the way through the range of motion. This is also designed to work with the 3 different size JZ alternators, like the NA one, the turbo one, and the auto turbo one, which are all slightly different sizes. So it'll allow movement for each one of those different alternators and or this alternator. And if maybe you had a different one than that, it should probably work too. So this will allow for your belt to go on there. That's pretty much the history of this alternator. So if you think about the pros, it's a high output alternator producing 160 amps, would allow you to run 2 large fans on your radiator, probably 3 fuel pumps, 1 water pump, and then you might have fans on your intercooler as well if it's a boosted application. This can handle all of that, and your coils are gonna pull some energy, and, you know, other couple accessories, like maybe you have a cool suit in your car, and it'll still handle all that, and you'll be good to go, and it's reliable, race ready. But it could also work in a street car. These are all pros right now, so if you're gonna go to the cons, I think there isn't really any cons on this one. It's a little bit more expensive than a stock alternator, but it can do a heck of a lot more, so it's just kind of a win-win. Okay guys, so for some of you that are thinking about making this purchase, let me go over a couple more details. Like I said, this pulley is for if you're running an ATI super damper. If you had a stock crank pulley or a fluid damper crank pulley, you don't need an oversized pulley. So let's say you took your stock pulley off of your existing JZ alternator and you put it on the RAD-160, it'll work. But if you start spinning your motor really high revs, RPM wise, to like 8,500, you will overspin the alternator. You still probably want to buy this unless you're just a street car guy, stock pulley, and your red line is 7,000, you're good to go. If you're gonna go into the 8,000 range, please buy this pulley so you don't hurt the alternator. We haven't had one come back that's been overspun yet, but you never know. It could happen if you're really revving out your motor, or maybe you have a 1J and they rev higher, easier. Just wanted to tell you guys that. Another thing, this is an 800 millimeter belt, and this is for guys that are gonna do the 1 belt system like I do on my race car. And let me tell you, before I attempt to put this on, these are extremely tight. It's hard to get it on, but once it's on, you can back it away a little bit on the tensioner and snug your upper bolt down, then snug your lower bolt down, and you're good to go, and you probably aren't taking it off. But when the belt is brand new, it's as tight as it ever will be, and it is not easy. Once you ran it for like 1 track day, you can get the belt and the alternator to like let it go on and off a little easier, and it's not that bad. let's jump over here and attempt this real quick with a brand new belt. All right guys, so before I throw the belt on there, I would like to kind of go through some of the little tricks that I learned to get this to work easier. So I'm going to take this through bolt out. This allows the alternator to swing down. I'm going to leave it there for a second. First things first, do not get rid of this and put a bolt there, because you could easily do that, get an M10 1.25 bolt and just have a through bolt on there. I like to use the stud because of what I'm going to show you right now. So I take the nut off of the stud on the alternator, I move it forward, you know, an inch or so that I clear this nub back here on the alternator. Just a little bit more. So now it's swung up higher where it normally would interfere. And I'll put the belt, make sure I have it directional, little details matter. Get my third hand out, put the belt on. It's still gonna be tight even now because it's tight. So the belt's on there, but all sideways, and we're overlapped on the water inlet piece a little bit. So now this will probably be easier when it's in the car than it's going to be for me right now, because we're on an engine stand. It's going to twist over, but then you just tension it up like this, and then you got to pull the alternator back underneath there. Okay, so that wasn't hard, but I've probably done this like 35 times. You can watch this video, see the little technique. So it had like step 1, get the belt on when you're an inch out. Step 2, pull down on it and slide back. Or in the case that you're leaning over the front of your car, push on the alternator. Then you're gonna just hand tight that. And then this will be the part where you kind of need 3 hands, because you're gonna put tension on it and then tighten it down. Or possibly, I hope you don't do this, but possibly a pry bar up against something shiny. You don't want to do that. Maybe you have a partner there to help you, where you can put a little bit of tension downward on it. If the belt's tight enough as it is, you just snug your through bolt like this, and then you're on. The only problem is I'm having people message me or call me occasionally asking about how to put it on, and it's like they probably didn't think to do it the way I just did, and they just have everything snug down here, and they're trying to push the belt over, and there's no way you're going to be doing that. This is how I found is the easiest way to do it. Once it's on there, you're literally never taking it off, but hopefully this little install helped you guys. And then you just kind of tighten everything down, get it lined up, and then maybe go back and tighten the top through bolt again. But there you have it, it's all set up, and it wasn't too hard. This was developed to, I guess, cure the headache I was having from these alternator failures, and it's just been, you know, positive from that experience moving forward with this alternator. So I thought I would share all the ins and outs with you guys, and now you know. So if you guys want to check out this alternator, go on our web store, look at it, and if you have questions, just ask us and we'll answer all the questions if we didn't cover them right now in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys next time.